or just to breathe, or heck, even to just take your lunch.
This is Stepping Up Healthcare. Your host is Tack, and the mission is simple. Build your capability and curiosity to make healthcare better.
Welcome back. We're talking about transportation waste today. The textbook definition of transportation waste is going to be any unnecessary movement of items, information, or people that doesn't add value to the customer. In healthcare, this is going to look like physically running to the lab because the tube system's down. Maybe supplies that work together aren't stored in the same supply room. They're stored in a couple different supply rooms, so you have to run around to grab each before you can actually perform the procedure or take care of the patient. Or a computer on wheels that has more travel miles than you do. And none of this movement actually treats a patient. Transportation waste isn't about motion for the sake of fitness. It's about motion that doesn't deliver care. One time when I was teaching the 8 wastes, someone asked about getting their steps in, aka their personal fitness. Hey, I want to make sure that I get my steps in, so I'm moving around more. She said this to try to trip me up, and it did take me a second to think about it, but ultimately, thinking back to value add, non-value add, and waste, personal fitness is good and fine and something to be achieved, but it's not value add in the eyes of the patient.
Why does it matter?
Transportation waste matters for 3 big reasons: minutes, distance, and attention. So number 1, minutes. Every unnecessary trip costs time, no matter how small. 30 seconds here, a minute there. It feels tiny in the moment, but stack those trips across a 12-hour shift and you might as well add professional walker to your resume. Those minutes could have been used for patient care, or for training, or just to breathe, or heck, even to just take your lunch. Number 2, distance. Distance quietly raises the cost of care, not in direct dollars, but in physical wear and tear. Yes, wear and tear of machines as we move them about, but more importantly, with our staff covering marathon-length distances just to get basic supplies. Fatigue and burnout are basically baked into the system. And lastly, attention. Every time someone leaves the point of care, even for a good reason, they're stepping out of the mental flow of their work. I know we've talked about this quite a bit, but that break in attention can lead to mistakes, even missed information. It's not about just the walking. It's the context switching, the stopping and starting nature that fragments our work.
Let's talk about some real-world examples.
So talking about a few real-world examples, surgical trays. Think about the road trip that an instrument takes from sterile processing to the OR and then back to SPD. I would classify this as necessary non-value add, but if an instrument is dropped or bioburden is found on it, that is immediately waste. A, because that's a defect, but B, because we're having to transport it back to sterile processing to be reprocessed and then back to the OR once it can be used again. Another example is supplies, probably a pretty obvious one, but supplies that are stored far from the point of use make us walk extra distances and transport those supplies to the bedside. Heaven forbid we actually forget something and have to make extra trips back to the clean hold. In that same vein, medication Pyxis machines. I have seen nurses grab meds for multiple patients because they don't want to make those trips. But that's where errors can happen unintentionally. We're trying to make up for a broken system. A system that makes us put in extra work. For all of this, what is needed is not necessarily in the place that we need it. Now, that's not necessarily feasible Are we going to have a clean hold in every single patient room? Probably not. That would be amazing, but probably not. So we need to find that fine line between where can we reduce or eliminate transportation waste while working with the reality that we work in. Typically, when I do a go and see, I pretty regularly do a rough spaghetti diagram. Now, if you've never heard of spaghetti diagrams, it's basically tracing someone's movement on a map of the workspace. You could use a blueprint or a floor plan, or heck, just sketch the area with pen and then follow them with a pencil. That's typically what I do. Doesn't need to be fancy, doesn't need to be professional looking. But document and follow them with every trek to the clean hold, every saunter to the med room, every walk to forage for missing pieces of equipment. Now, I'll usually do this for about 30 minutes to an hour, trying to be very, very precise. And by the end, the page looks like someone dropped a bowl of spaghetti on the floor plan. And that's the point. They show us where things truly live, where they should live, and how often our staff uses something. The best part, and I mentioned it before, is you don't need any fancy software. You just need a floor plan, maybe, or just a scrap piece of paper and a pen. Keep it really low tech, and this low tech approach ends up giving us some really good information. This spaghetti on your floor plans should bother you a little bit. That means that you're starting to really see the opportunities.
Homework time.
All right, it's homework time. So I want you to pick one item, supply, equipment, paperwork, whatever you want. And I want you to ask 3 questions. Where does it start? Where does it travel? And most importantly, why does it travel? Then, if you want to take this a step further, count the number of steps from a typical patient room to where this supply, equipment, paperwork, whatever it is, wherever that thing lives. Multiply that by the number of times staff make that trip in a shift. So, just as an example, let's say it takes 18 steps from the patient room to the clean hold to get flushes. That's done 3 times a shift for this specific patient, so that's about 54 steps. That's 3 times 18 is 54. Or it ends up being about 120 feet, give or take. If the patient assignment is 5, that's roughly about 600 feet or about 2 American football fields, just for one supply. And you can end up extrapolating that out more by shifts or patients or staff or whatever it might be. But I want you to take that number and reflect on it. So ask those 3 questions. Where does it start? Where does it travel? And why does it travel? And then do that quick math and reflect on that number. Thanks for tuning in, but that's all I've got for you today. Next episode is about inventory waste. I'm Tack. You're appreciated. Let's step up healthcare.